I know how to quiet down this crowd. All those who's standing, $5,000 ahead. Whoop, quiet. Thank you so much for your kind words, Glenda, and thanks for the center for having me here tonight. I have to say, it really is an honor. Let's get a copy of that. I really enjoyed that video. This is a friendlier audience than I'm used to. Let me start off by congratulating the other honorees for all the great work they do. Google, Lena, Don, congratulations. Now, Don, you heard Don, and I promised I'd get the last word. We're friends outside. We run into each other all the time. And I have to say, I really wish he stayed and could listen to my remarks. In fact, I don't really understand why he left. Day in, day out, he goes and talks to 5 people, all of whom trip over themselves as to who hates Trump the most. Here he had 800 people willing to do the same thing. And yet he left. To be honest, I'm flattered to be here, but I also get a little bit squirmy at the prospect of being thanked for supporting fairness and equal treatment. I just feel this way. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. But as I said, kind of like it. When I was leading Goldman Sachs, I had a kind of idea of what issues I should speak out and what issues I could speak out. I was always aware that people were interested in my opinion because of my platform, and I felt I should use that platform for things where people would feel that were appropriate to my job in a way. There's issues that are personal issues to me that I feel a little bit like I'm misappropriating somebody else's asset if I use that and leverage something I felt personal about. But there are things I'm a kind of licensed to talk about, and those things related to kind of finance things, like it would be good to balance the budget, good if we didn't default on our debt, good if we didn't run our deficit out to infinity, and good if we kept trading with people in the world. Financial stuff. But I also felt that it was my responsibility as head of the company to be the champion of the people who work for us. I mean, these are people that I commute to the firm. I say, people have choices of where they can go. We recruit the best people, great schools. They can go to other places. And I say, come to us, you'll have a great career. And I kind of felt an obligation, not just a license to support them, but an obligation and a duty to do it. To use the voice that I had at Goldman and my own voice to make sure everyone was able to bring their whole selves to work, to realize their full potential without distraction. It's lesbians, gays, bi, trans, HIV positives, people of color, immigrants. I owed it to the people because I recruited them and they came and followed our lead. Now, as I was alluded in that video, around the time that states were legislating for marriage equality, I was co-chairing the Partnership for New York City, and that's a CEO organization, and the best analogy would be like a chamber of commerce if New York were a normal city. But guess what? We have a lot of CEOs and a lot of big companies in New York, so it tends to have a little bit of an outsized influence. I was asked to get involved with the lobbying effort around marriage equality, and I did. And, oddly enough, they would ask me to make the business case. I kind of thought there was a justice case too, but they asked me to make the business case for some reason. In any case, it got a lot of attention once it went public. Now, in those days of the financial crisis, I think maybe you probably don't remember the financial crisis. I still have PTSD, so I remember it. Now, as part of that financial crisis, I would do, adjusted my life a little bit. I would have my wife go out and start the car for me in the morning. I would also, but the thing I was most scared about was the press. I would have my wife read the newspapers in the morning and tell me if it was safe to look at them. So one day Laura comes in and waves the paper at me and tells me, it's not the normal headline for you, but it's a different one. And in fact, I hadn't seen that video. It was up there. It was the headline, Blankfein supports same-sex marriage. I told her, my gosh, it must have been a typo. I said I was for some-sex marriage. Now, over the years, I've had many people come out to me. I've had many people come out to me in the firm, and I have to say, it always pained me to think about the wasted energy, the wasted mind share, the time, the distress that people went through to disguise themselves every day. I didn't live this life, and if I'm not doing justice to the feelings you have, excuse me, this is my best to try to be empathetic, but I always imagine in my job, I'd leave a room and I'd think, how did I perform? Did I do well? Did I do? What did they think of me? And so, did I act enough like a CEO in that meeting? And then I think of all the people once who come out to me and I review in my mind, what must they have lived like when in addition to wondering whether they did their job well, they performed well, whether they were convincing, whether they were effective, did I act straight enough? Was I too gay? Again, I didn't live this life, but I just imagine. I just imagine what a burden that must be and how much more effective that people could have been in their job, let alone happier in their lives. One of the partners that I'd been very, very close to, a good friend of mine for many years at the firm, came into my office one day and he was wearing his jacket. That's always a bad sign when somebody who works with you comes into the back. You know you're going to get news, and news is very rarely good news. So I thought to myself, uh-oh, bad sign. And he was a bit tense and nervous, and he came and he started out and said, Lloyd, I need to tell you something. My wife and I are getting divorced. Wow, I said, I'm so sorry for you. And he goes, wait a second, that's not all. I'm in a new relationship, he said. I said, oh, is that it? And he said, no, it's with another man and we're in love. Again, I said, is that it? And he said, yes, isn't that enough? And I said, thank God, I thought you were quitting. I'm very humbled that a very small thing that I did at an opportune moment was appreciated by the people at our firm and had a broader impact on the community. I'm also glad that we have a place like the center here in New York City to extend support to so many others, and absolute saints who work there. Thank you. Recently, I took a tour of the center to learn more about it, so I could say I took a tour of the center. And I say, my God, what an incredible village. Small place, yeah. I'd say the energy in the building was palpable, and I say it was a happy place, and I know it wasn't always like that. I know the conditions and the circumstances into which that was created in the middle of the AIDS crisis of the 80s, and it couldn't have, obviously not a happy place then, but it's evolved into a happy place now, and I was really glad to see it. I'd say a highlight of the visit for me was the Keith Haring bathroom. For those of you who don't know exactly what I'm talking to, go on Google. Thank you, Google. Go on Google, type in Keith Haring Bathroom Center, and you'll be investigated by the FBI. I'll just say, on the same-sex versus some-sex question, there's no ambiguity. The mural has both. Again, thanks a lot for this wonderful honor. I also recognize that intolerance and ignorance still plagues too much of society, but when you consider how much has changed so quickly, and marriage equality is a great example of that, I really am optimistic about our collective future. So thank you all very much for this great honor.